I slept with his friend as revenge for ignoring me. He acted like I was a stranger. I made a choice I never thought I would, and my story isn't just about betrayal. It's about what happens when love isn't enough. My name is Jane, and yeah, I handled things the wrong way, but still, I find myself asking this question. Was it my fault for needing more? Or was my boyfriend just incapable of giving what I truly needed? And my only way to challenge him to the task was by taking revenge on him. So please don't judge without listening to the end. I'll try to keep it short. When I first met my boyfriend, Caleb, he wasn't like how he is at the moment. He was everything sweet and affectionate. We went on trips regularly, had fun dates, and did every other lovely thing couples do that you can imagine. I remember one day when I said I needed the most recent edition of a particular bag. It was quite pricey, but he got it for me without any arguments. He spoiled me like every true man should in a relationship. He went above and beyond, making me feel like a queen every single day. His love was loud, visible, and undeniable. This gave me power whenever I showed up in any public space, or when I was with my friends. I could brag loudly because the evidence was there, and there was no way anyone could dim me. I shone brightest, and this made my friends jealous of me at all times. They couldn't hide it. Some rolled their eyes, others threw shade, but deep down they wished they were in my shoes. There was even a time when one of my friends, Elle, was looking for ways to destroy my relationship. She tried seducing my boyfriend and made it look like he was interested in her. But she didn't achieve that at the end of the day because my boyfriend recorded every single conversation and move that she made and made sure to play it out loud for everyone to see. She was embarrassed and shameful to the point that she stopped talking to me and the rest of the girls for a certain period of time. But now we are okay because she pleaded for mercy and accepted her punishment, and also promised never to exist in the same space as my boyfriend. It was a chaotic moment, one I'll never forget. The tension, the stares, and the awkward silence when the recordings played, it was all so intense. But it revealed the truth in a way words never could. But that's not why I'm sharing my story. Sorry I drifted a little, but I had to include that part to show how sweet and faithful Caleb was to me. How he never hesitated to make sure I felt loved in every situation. He was consistent, reassuring, and made it clear to everyone around us that I was his priority, no matter the pressure or the temptation. This went on for the first 2 years of our relationship, but then things started to slow down a bit. He reduced the way he showed up for me, and I was not truly happy about it, but I adapted like the good and loving girlfriend that I was. And then he stopped buying designer bags and started telling me things about how we have to learn to manage and maximize our spending because the days of fun were over, but that it would continue in the future. Then I asked myself, what does that even mean? Because I didn't understand what he meant exactly. I really didn't. It felt like a sudden change, like I was being prepared for a new reality I didn't sign up for, one I didn't know how to process. My skincare cost a lot, and how was I supposed to manage that? He promised to take care of me and always love me, so what went wrong? Why was he talking about management all of a sudden when he was fully loaded? That didn't make sense to me. When I confronted him, he talked about how the pain of discipline is far lesser than the pain of regret. Can you imagine? How was that even relatable to the situation at hand? I was completely pissed. It felt like I was having a conversation with a stranger, someone who didn't remember the promises, the life, the girl he once made feel like the center of his world. I live with him, but I was so angry after the heated conversation we had that I ran away. I went to one of my friend's houses. She comforted me that night. I was crying profusely. Do you know what Caleb did? He only reached out to make sure I was in a safe place after he confirmed that he ended the call. He didn't even text after. He didn't even care to check on my well-being. He knew how I felt when I left the house earlier that day. That's when I started feeling like he was neglecting me. He didn't even have a damn respect for my feelings. I was completely bitter that night. I broke down again, but luckily, my friend helped make everything easy for me. She held me in her arms like a sister would, wiped my tears, listened to my rant, and told me I wasn't crazy for expecting more. Her presence saved me from spiraling deeper. When I woke up in the morning, my eyes were swollen due to crying excessively, but I didn't mind. I missed my boyfriend, although he didn't miss me, so I just washed my face and grabbed my stuff and went back home. I had this whole conversation in my head on my way back. I visualized how I was going to spit out everything to him about how he made me feel, but when I got home, the words erased the moment I stepped back into the house. Because I was welcomed with a sweet aroma of food. Caleb had prepared breakfast, my favorite to be precise, and then the table was set as if he knew the moment I was going to return home. He smiled when he saw me and said, "Good morning, it's good to have you back. I made your favorite. Come, let's eat." He was acting all sweet. He made me forget every little thing I had planned, and just like that, my anger quickly melted away. Everything just went back to normal, and we had a great time during breakfast and after breakfast. His charm had a way of disarming me, pulling me back into comfort even when I swore I'd stand my ground. It was almost magical how he turned tension into peace with a single gesture. The day went on successfully well, to the point that I was convinced nothing could ever go wrong. But then, evil still found a way to creep in between us. We were just lying on the bed after we had a great intimate moment. Then we started conversing and bounced from one topic to another. The final one that crashed us was when we talked about vacation and trips. We hadn't taken one in a while, and I needed it. You could say I am a micro-influencer in a way, and I mostly do travel vlogs sometimes because we used to travel a lot. I might not have millions of followers, but I've built a loyal little community, people who look forward to my travel vlogs, my hotel reviews, my tiny capsule clips about culture and food. And recently they'd been on my neck about a specific trip I hinted at. So my social media was burning hot, not in a good way. Some of my fans were demanding a vlog in a specific location, and I couldn't afford to give it to them because I couldn't do it on my own. Aside from the financial aspect, traveling as a content creator isn't just flying somewhere and taking cute pictures. It's teamwork. Filming, setting up shots, holding the camera while I talk to it. Caleb had always been the other half of that. He was the one behind the scenes, making sure angles were right, lighting was perfect, and I looked effortless in every frame. Without him, it never quite felt complete. So I had promised them it was going to happen soon, but then Caleb had to ruin all that. He looked at me like I was asking for too much, like my dreams were nothing but expensive hobbies. So when I talked about how we should take a trip next month and how I really needed it, he shut me down, saying he didn't have the money for the trip, and that he wanted to invest in his company, and that I should hold on for a bit. He promised that when everything works out in the future, I'd get to travel as much as possible. I was really mad because this trip couldn't be shifted to the future. And what did he mean by he didn't have the money? Keep in mind, I'm not asking him to not invest in his startup company. I'm his girlfriend, and I was simply asking that he should also be able to support when needed. I wasn't demanding the world. I was asking for partnership, for support, for a moment of joy to remind us of who we were before everything became this tight and tense. But I guess I wasn't important enough for him to spend on. I know for a fact that there's no way he was going to pour all his money into that company. Caleb was being selfish at that point, so I called him out and told him how completely selfish he was, and that I'm aware he wants to invest, but it's not like he's investing everything. Then he said I was right. He was not investing everything so we could survive. He reminded me that we have to feed and we can't survive on oxygen alone. I rolled my eyes when he was speaking. I was so annoyed. So because he had to invest and we have to feed, we shouldn't live our lives beautifully and create unforgettable memories? I flared up and told him that he was slowly changing and I couldn't recognize him anymore. And then he thought it was funny and asked how he had changed. Did I grow more handsome or taller? What change am I talking about exactly? He asked. And my gosh, that made anger burn through my veins. Caleb can be so annoying sometimes. He knew exactly what I was talking about, but he pretended not to understand me. What kind of man does that? It was infuriating, like speaking into a void, like begging someone to see the pain right in front of them and getting jokes in return. See, that's why I got mad and said some hurtful things to him, and then I walked out of the house. I made him worried this time. When his calls came in, I declined them. I didn't even respond to his text messages. Later, I turned off my phone. I stayed at my friend's for 2 days. My other friends came around, including Elle. I explained the situation to them and how heartbreaking it was for me. They really didn't have advice for me. They mostly just said that everything would be all right. One of them even said maybe Caleb was going through a tough time and he didn't want to share that, but rather carry that burden on his own. and that's why he was trying to be careful with expenses. I almost chewed her raw because if she were in my situation, if she was Caleb's girlfriend, she would know that Caleb was not suffering one bit, not even close to it. I mean, I live with him in the same house, so I would know. So the only answer I had in my head was maybe he stopped loving me. But why? What did I do wrong? I stayed by his side all day and night, and I had never even cheated on him or found anyone else attractive, not even once. So why would his feelings toward me change? It didn't make any sense. I wasn't the type to slack on love. I gave my all, gave him my time, energy, loyalty, everything. I know that sometimes love fades in a relationship, but ours was just so different from the normal roles people played as a couple, so there was no way that could happen. Even if that were to be the case for us, as we all know, the future is unpredictable, at least not anything soon. Not after everything we'd been through together, not after the memories and promises that had built the foundation of who we were. We've been together for almost 3 years, so there's no way I wouldn't know, and there's no way Caleb wouldn't share that with me. So I told her to know her place, and then Elle spoke my mind. She said something I had been hinting at, but refused to come to terms with or even believe. Elle said that maybe he had a new girlfriend, so he was redirecting all his attention and resources to her, and that's why he couldn't afford to take care of me. Elle even suggested that maybe why he rejected her when she took a shot at him was because she was my friend and he thought he might get caught, so he preferred someone not close to us. I began thinking, where does he find the time to do all that when we stay together? Did he pretend to go work while he was out there messing around? I had asked myself that several times because why would a man suddenly change? Why would he do that? Was I being paranoid? Or was I finally opening my eyes to a truth I'd tried to ignore for too long? Anyways, she concluded with talks about how men can be so disappointing and all that. Her point actually made sense then, because I'd been thinking the same, especially with how everything was unfolding. But at the same time, I wasn't so sure. I needed time to properly think about everything before I made a decision. While I was there, Caleb showed up. He came to check how I was doing. I was not surprised to see him. Given the fact that I left him with no access to me, I was expecting that. He came around and saw how I was, but I was giving him attitude and acting all cold and strong. I didn't want to break again in front of him. I needed him to see that I wasn't begging for his attention, even though I honestly wanted answers. He concluded that I was doing fine, and he had been worried over nothing, and that since he had confirmed I was perfectly safe, he had to return back home, and that I'd be at home whenever I was ready to come back. The way he said it made it sound so easy, like my absence didn't leave a dent, and that stung more. He was unbelievable. The next day, my mind was made up. I'm a very expressive person, so I love to be transparent with my emotions and feelings. So I decided I was going to confront the things that were on my mind. At the same time, while I was heading there, I had this plan to sneak up on him in case he was doing what he was not supposed to. But when I got there, I was more disappointed in my actions because this man was just playing games and laughing with his invisible online friends. Yes, gaming is what he does when he doesn't have work to do. He asked why I was acting like a snake, given the way I entered the house, and told him I didn't know what he was talking about. I felt foolish for doubting him, but also frustrated because the coldness between us wasn't just in my head. It was real, even if he tried to pretend otherwise. He didn't say anything more. He just welcomed me back home and said he hoped I wouldn't run away again. I just rolled my eyes and said to him that I ran away because I couldn't face him at the moment. He was acting strange, so I had to leave because I was deeply hurt. I mean, that man always gets me whatever I want, but as time went by, he had become cold. When I said cold, I meant emotionally distant for no absolute reason. He said that those things were in my head, and that all he was asking from me was to be a little bit patient and understanding. I told him that I was even suspecting he had a new girlfriend somewhere, and that's why he was paying less attention to me. He laughed and said, "Why would I even think that?" And that he loved me too much to do that, and he was sorry if he ever made me feel that way. And that was how we made up. I told him I'd try to understand him as well, because I love him too. Isn't that proof of how understanding and considerate I was? Because I love this man deeply, I was willing to forgive and hold on. But then, a week later, his sister said she needed cash to do whatever. He sent it to her willingly, without batting an eye. but when it came to me, I had to be understanding. And that was when I refused to be understanding. I stole his cards, booked my trip, and left with my friends. If he wasn't going to do it willingly, I was going to force him to do it. And that's exactly what happened. He still ended up sponsoring the whole trip, although sadly he missed out on it, and it wasn't done based on his accord. I had a lot of fun during the trip. At least I was able not to disappoint my fans, and I felt good. But that good feeling disappeared when I returned home. The excitement faded fast, that it scared me. The moment I entered the house, Caleb gave me a very cold welcome, like he wasn't happy to see me. In everything I said and did, he kept giving all these one-word replies. It was so annoying. I was frustrated by his attitude. He didn't act angry or complain. He stayed that way for days. I kept becoming totally invisible to his eyes. It was like he no longer loved me, because no matter what I did or said, he stayed the same. I couldn't cope with the new him. When the groceries were finished, I asked him for money, but he gave me nothing. He said the dumbest thing ever. He asked me to use the return on investment from my trip to buy groceries. I asked what that meant, and he said that I decided to invest in my trip, so at least there should be a return on investment. How could he even say that? He was just being selfish and cruel, if I'm being honest. If he was truly low on funds like he said, he would have crashed before I returned. But he was completely unbothered. That cold indifference cut deeper than any argument. It felt like my needs, my very survival, were irrelevant to him, like I was nothing more than an inconvenience, which only means me and my needs were not that important to him. He kept saying he loved me but couldn't even help me do whatever I wanted. I got so mad and shouted at him, but he completely ignored me all day. It was like I was shouting at a ghost. At one point, I gave up. He kept ignoring me for days, and I was literally starving most days because this man was eating out before coming home. He didn't even bother to know how I was surviving. If my friends didn't bring me little food sometimes, I would have probably died of starvation. The neglect was unbearable. When did Caleb grow this cold? I kept asking myself. Every day he came back from work, he acted like I didn't exist. I was completely ignored. This went on for like a week. I cried my heart out because I was heartbroken. Was I not punished enough? What more was he expecting me to do? I decided that since he hadn't broken up with me yet, that meant he still cared, and I could use that to my advantage. I needed him to feel the pain I went through. I needed to get my revenge on him. I had to think of something that would break him down. And that's when the plan first formed in my head. I wasn't so sure about it because I am not that person. I couldn't go that far, but he went really far, and I wanted to remind him of what he would lose if he kept on acting selfishly. It was a desperate moment, fueled by pain and anger, where I felt pushed to the edge and was willing to do anything to make him see how much he was hurting me. So overwhelmed by emotion, I approached his closest friend. They've been friends for years. He is also his assistant. I didn't go with the intent of messing around with him. I went to confide in him because he was the closest person to Caleb, and I needed to talk to someone who knew him. Like, really knew him, because I didn't know how to cope anymore. I needed an ally, someone who understood the man Caleb was beneath all this coldness and distance, someone who could help me find a way through the mess. So I broke down. I told him everything, how the silence from Caleb was eating me alive, and I just needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy for feeling this lost. He actually listened to me and told me not to worry, that he would talk to Caleb and that Caleb was just being mad because I went against him. That was bullshit to me because he didn't have to make me starve. I had the right to spend his money. He's my boyfriend after all. While I was with his friend, that's when the thought of sleeping with him was forced in my head. I needed to teach Caleb a lesson, and I knew his friend wouldn't willingly sleep with me, so I had to make it happen. It was a dangerous idea, one I hated myself for even considering, but the pain and betrayal clouded my judgment and pushed me toward something I never imagined I'd do. I asked him if I could stay a little longer before returning home, and that I was just feeling overwhelmed, and it would get worse if I returned. I explained that I would love to leave at night, so I'll just go to bed without having to face Caleb. He wasn't actually okay with the idea at first, and he said he was sorry, but that he would have to inform Caleb I was there. I told him to go ahead, because that would only make everything believable once my plan was executed. Then I told him I was uncomfortable in my dress, and I needed to change. I acted all sweet and soft and emotional, and he couldn't say no to me. I used my situation to my advantage. I even apologized for inconveniencing him. He kept saying it was all right when it wasn't because he was trying to be a gentleman. He showed me where to change up in the room, and I went in. When I got in the room, I took my dress off. I waited for a few minutes, then I started crying. I cried so loudly. He came to the door and asked if everything was all right. I didn't answer him. I kept crying. He kept saying comforting words to me. And then finally, he asked the question I had been waiting for, if he could come in. Then he asked if I was properly dressed. I didn't answer for a few seconds, but I later told him that it was all right and he could come in. He came and his eyes widened at the sight of me. He quickly turned away, trying to run out, but I made a quick move and hugged him from behind, stopping him from escaping. I cried and told him that I'm sorry I didn't dress, that I couldn't. I just felt weak and broken thinking about everything. He was begging me to let him go, that he would communicate from outside the room. But I said I would let him if only he could look me in the eyes and say it. He said I should rely on his words alone because he didn't think it was right for him to look at me while I'm naked. But I proved stubborn and made him turn in the end. I knew he wasn't a violent person, so there was no way he was going to jerk me away and walk out. So when he turned, I kissed him. He pushed me away, but I wasn't letting go, and I was crying as well, so he couldn't look away. I took his hands to my breast and told him I just needed comfort and that I don't know how or where else to seek it. And before he could say anything else, again, I went down on him and he couldn't resist. That's how we ended up sleeping with each other. He wasn't bad, but that's not my details to give out because as much as I enjoyed every moment, I did it for revenge. I forgot to mention earlier, I had already set my phone in the right position to capture everything in case Caleb doubted me. After everything, his friend felt bad, and I told him I was sorry before I dressed up and left the house. I felt bad for him too, but I didn't want any emotions to stand in my way. I had made up my mind, and nothing, not even guilt or shame, was going to stop me from showing Caleb how much he'd been hurting me. So when I got home, I played the video for Caleb while explaining what's at risk if he doesn't start acting like my boyfriend. He didn't even have interest in the video or my talk. He just stood up and walked away. He didn't even act like I was there at all. He just stood up, went to his game setup, and started playing games. That was definitely not the reaction I expected when I did this. I did this to provoke him, to make him feel what it meant to be ignored and broken. I wanted him to feel shaken, to at least flinch, to look at me with something. But he just made me feel like a total stranger, like I meant nothing to him. I didn't even know what to do next, so I just stood up and went to him and started shouting. But he kept ignoring me while talking to his game buddies. That was brutally painful, so I turned off the computer so he could focus on me. But then he stood up and went to the room. He started packing my stuff out, and while doing it, he kept saying things like, "Oops, who owns this trash?" And "Why would trash be in my house?" And so that's why I've been so uncomfortable. And then he started throwing them out. No matter how I shouted, cried, or yelled, he didn't stop. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't even act like I was there. It was like I had become invisible to him, like every memory we shared had been erased in one cold sweep. And when he was done, he picked up the last of my things, walked to the door, opened it, and just casually said to himself, "I need to take this trash out. I can't let my front door stay this messy." He stepped outside, so I followed, still shouting and crying. Then he quickly turned back and locked the door. That was the ending I got after all the "I love you, I'll never hurt you, you're the one for me." Men will disappoint you, every single time, even the ones who swore they were different. I know maybe sleeping with his friend was not the right revenge move, but still, Caleb did too much. He didn't even make me feel seen at any point. He completely ignored my needs, my emotions, and my entire existence. What was I supposed to do? I was desperate, and desperate people do desperate things, so you can't really blame me. Or maybe you can. Maybe I was reaching, trying too hard to be loved by someone who had already checked out. Gosh, was I that hard to love? Why did he have to make me mess up? And now he got rid of me like I was nothing and none of what we had mattered at all. I even feel bad for myself because I have no money or house to stay in. The little money I made from influencing, I used it all up because I thought I had stability, only to be met with this fate. I thought love would be enough, but all I got was cold floors and locked doors. Update. I've been reading through the comments, and most of you accuse me of being at fault. Well, I have already admitted that my actions were a little bit out of line, but I was deeply hurt and I acted out of emotion, which isn't right. But do you know what Caleb has cost me? My social media. My online presence crashed. I had to deactivate because I couldn't keep up with the luxury, and everyone was calling me a fake and all that. People only clap for you when you're on top, and when you're down, they turn their backs on you. I can't even afford basic needs, let alone luxury. My life has taken a drastic turn backwards. My friends are really trying. They're really there for me. But the one I'm staying with is complaining about how her space is too small for her, so she can't cope anymore, and I have to find my own place. But I don't have money. I don't even know who to ask. I tried reaching out to Caleb, but he's not responding. He doesn't even open his door for me. I'm just going from frying pan to fire, and it looks like I might not survive it, because it's truly hard without Caleb. I hate to admit it, but that's the truth. He made me turn into a bad person and then got rid of me. I'm never the type of person to do that, but then I did, because of him. Now I'm stripped of everything I had access to. I lost everything, and I spend most of my days crying and crying. Once my friend kicks me out, I might just end up on the streets. But I'm trying to juggle one job to another to avoid that. People I had power over because of the luxury now have a say in my life, and I'm left alone. Maybe this is just how it ends for me, forgotten, alone, and emptied out.